Maybe I should. All right, let me put on all my medals that I've won over the last couple months for this recording. It's 2 and 3. All right, I'm ready to go.
Good man. Yep, I think we're already off. So whenever you're ready to count us in.
All right, 3, 2, 1.
Attention, darts fans. After searching high and low, to and fro, from coast to coast on Wine and Toast, the award for best hashtag in the game goes to Dynamite Darts Content. And your winner is the weekly Dartscast, baby. 3 words: Dynamite Darts Content. Enjoy the show.
Hello and welcome to a new episode of the weekly Dartscast, sponsored by Dartwolf. I'm Alex Moss, and alongside me as always is the man I'm now calling the Bo Greaves of the Rogue Darts League. Another trophy for him last week. It is the darts statistician, Burton DeWitt. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I have all 3 of my winners' medals on right now from the last few months. You can hear them. Maybe I'll take them off so that they don't make noise throughout the entire episode. But no, I'm doing just fine. Sorry about your loss in the football, but otherwise, how are you doing?
Yeah, I wasn't going to mention that. I think if the Lionesses had won the World Cup, this show might not have been recorded on a Tuesday. We might have had to take the week off. I'd have still been celebrating. But yeah, all good here. Thank you. No trophies or medals for me to show off. I did make the last 32 of a local open on Friday night. And when I tell my mates that, they say, oh, well done. You must be getting better than what we remember. But I'll just leave out the part where there was only 32 entries and I lost 3-0 in my first game. But congratulations on the win, Burton. We've got a co-host, one of us at least, that's got a habit of winning things in darts. And that's exactly what we can say about our 2 guests on the show this week as well. Gian van Veen and Luke Littler, first and second on the development tour order of merit this year. And the 2 players who are going to be contesting the PDC World Youth Championship final in November. You're going to hear from both of those 2 players later on, get their thoughts on the final. The early build-up, we're still 3 months away from it, but we'll give our thoughts on it because we now do know the lineup for Minehead. We had 96 players on Sunday that played down to the final 2. It is going to be the number 1 and number 2 on that order of merit, Gian van Veen against Luke Littler. Are we in for the best World Youth Championship final yet?
We very well might be. We're not going to say the 2 best young players in the world, full stop, because Josh Rock was in this event and Josh Rock wasn't at his best. And I remember mentioning last week that we weren't sure exactly where Josh Rock was. With the biggest struggles we've seen from him over the last couple months before the August break, it seemed like at the very least he was rusty across the 3 matches he played. He had an added disadvantage that he had not even got to play the development tour the previous 2 days to get back into form. So he really was on, a full month since he went out at the World Match Play without playing a PDC level event, while his 2 opponents had just played 4 tournaments over the previous 2 days. But it still seemed a drop off for Josh Rock from the game that we know he has. But take him aside, these 2 were probably the 2 best players in this field. You can make an argument for Wessel Nijman. He was absolutely brilliant and was unlucky not to make the final. Averaged 102 in losing in that semifinal to Gian van Veen. And look, if you look at the legs that he won, of those 5 legs that he won, they included a 10 darter, a 12 darter, another 12 darter, the other 2 15 and 18. And good thing I added that teen in there. I almost said an 8 dart leg. But you can look at that 18 dart leg as a bad leg. But the other thing is, you can look at it as he hit last dart in hand, just like he did in the 15, just like he did in the 12 darter when Gian van Veen was waiting on 47. So that was under pressure. He was staying in that match, averaging 102. An absolutely brilliant match. And that's what kept him from the finals. But he averaged 103 in the quarters. He averaged 106 in the last 16. Even in his first match, the lowest of the lot, he averaged 98. It was an absolutely brilliant day from Wessel Nijman. It was not good enough when all was said and done because of how good Gian van Veen is. And in the end, we're left with a remarkable final. But even if it wasn't this, the quality of these players, the quality of all 4 semifinalists, the quality of the players that qualified for this event has never been anywhere near this. Even last year, when many of these players were still there, because these players are better. And now that we're fully out of COVID, fully out of the problems that plagued the world for the last few years, and we've had a full tour, we've had a full year, we've had full challenge tour and other events that these players can go compete in, not just in the PDC, but in the WDF, they've been able to play more and improve and get better. I think it's been the best tournament so far, and I only expect it to be better from here. As far as Gian van Veen is, we've seen him on the big stage before. He's not going to buckle under pressure. We have not seen Luke Littler on a big PDC stage yet. We almost certainly will in the future. We certainly will in the future unless he decides not to play the World Youth Final. But we almost certainly will in many other events in the future if he keeps progressing, if he keeps playing. But I don't think that the lack of experience is going to be a big problem for him. I think this has every possibility of both of these players doing like they did in the semifinals, which is average over 100. And if they do that, then it will have to be the best World Youth Final ever.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. And I'll start off, you mentioned about Josh Rock as well when we spoke on the show last week. A lot of our preview was about Josh Rock, who was coming back to try and defend the title. As you touched on, not allowed to play on the development tour this year. He is a top 32 player, but still young enough to have a go at defending the title. And I thought that he would make the final. I know a lot of people were expecting Josh Rock to be in that final to try and defend the title. And my hope really was that from the other half of the draw, whoever ended up being in that half, that we would get one of those other big hitters to go against him in the final. And it would be one of the most anticipated finals in the event's still relatively short history. But even without Josh Rock in this final, he lost out in the quarterfinals, a last leg decider to Gian van Veen. I think having Gian and Luke in there, I still think this is a final that even already people are getting excited about, and it has got the potential to be the best one yet. We have got, as I've said, the number 1 and number 2 on that development tour order of merit. Gian has won 6 titles this year. He's on his first year with that tour card and more than made his mark already. Looking on the Euro Tour on a stage, some of the big averages that he's produced and against a high caliber of players. And then you've got the number 2, Luke Littler, only 16, his first year on the development tour. But even before this year, a lot of darts fans were starting to stand up and take notice of him, looking at what he's done elsewhere on the WDF circuit, the JDC, the Modus. He was starting to build a reputation as one of those exciting young talents. And even this year, that's grown tenfold. Look at what he did at the UK Open as a Riley's qualifier and on the development tour, winning 5 titles. And okay, we've seen that the prize fund jump up this year for the development tour, but both those players have banked well in excess of 20 grand. And even though you mentioned Wessel Nijman, he had those match starts to beat Gian in the semi-finals. He was top of the averages for the development tour this year. He's going to feel very unfortunate not to be one of the players that we're talking about in this question. But I think if you'd have put him in there instead of one of the other 2, if you'd have had any of those 3, adding Josh Rock in there, 2 of those 4 players, I think you've got an impressive final. You've got 2 impressive young talents, and in Gian and Luke, 2 that really could light up that stage in my head. Because we look back at some of the previous finals, we've had Dimitri Vandenberg, he's thrown back-to-back 100-plus averages when he's won his 2 titles. Josh last year blew that record average in a final out the water, the 104. But I think these 2 players, they are capable of both playing to that level. It wouldn't surprise me if they both averaged over the ton. I'm going to set the bar a little bit lower, though, because I don't want to jinx it too much. But looking at the history of this event, the finals, we've never had a final where both players have averaged 95-plus. I think these 2 players can quite easily do that. And as I say, I think they could go even higher than that. And just one thing to get you excited for this final, if you're not already excited, I'll take you back July 1st of this year, the Euro Tour. Gian throws a 114.15 average against Damon Heta, beats him 6-0. Later on that day, Luke Littler on the Modus in the final, 117.88 final to beat Andy Barton's 4-0. So that just shows you the levels that these 2 players are capable of on a stage. And okay, it's going to be a little bit different. It's a World Youth Final, but I think we're in for a cracker. And yeah, I can't wait to watch it.
Well, another thing that I can't wait to watch is the 2 top players on the development tour that won tour cards next year. Those are Luke Littler and Wessel Nijman, both of whom we just spoke at length about. But we will get to watch them next year as they have tour cards for 2024 and 2025. How do you see them both faring, though, next year as first-year tour card holders?
Yeah, I've got to say, if you're a fan of Luke Littler or Gian van Veen or both of them, you're going to love this show this week because you're going to hear from them, and we're going to be talking an awful lot about them as well. So move over the Rob Cross Appreciation Minute. This week it is the Luke Littler, Gian van Veen Appreciation Show, but we are going to talk about another player in this question, as you said, Wessel Nijman, and a few other players later on as well. But circling back to Luke Littler, first of all, runner-up on the development tour in his debut year, still only 16 years of age. He's now got a tour card for the next 2 years. He's got a spot in the World Championship in December, and all at the age of 16. And I'm going to try not to mention his age too much because I know it gets brought up a lot already, and you've got to imagine over the next few months as we build up to the World Championship, it's going to be brought up an awful lot more. And he's making history at an alarming rate. He's the youngest player, one of the youngest players to tick off a lot of these milestones, and it's a remarkable set of achievements for someone at such a young age. And at his age, the focus, rightly or wrongly, is going to be on that, and whether he is too young to play on the Pro Tour, because the PDC, they have set their age limits. The minimum age is 16 to play at Q School. Circle back to the start of this year, and Luke was only 15, so he just missed out on getting to play Q School this year, but he's not got to worry about that next year. He has got that tour card through the development tour, and he's done it by playing at a very consistent standard, 92 average across the season. Him and Wessel are top of those, the averages for the year. Wessel just above him, but they both averaged the 92. And I think with Luke, his ability is unquestioned. We've seen enough now to say that he's got a lot of potential to be one of the best players, and it's going to be now how he adjusts to the Pro Tour. More eyes are going to be on him, and only time's going to tell. I think as far as every step he's made so far, he's passed it with flying colours, and this is probably the biggest step there is to take. And I think as long as he keeps his feet on the ground, and I think there are people around him, good people around him. You look at his boss, I should say Martin Folds, the boss of ZXF Management, his manager, also manages Nathan Aspinall, Chris Dobie. We had him on the show earlier this year. I think he's going to make sure that he stays level-headed, and I think one of the big things is going to be next year is coping with any disappointments, because you'd imagine his winning percentage that it is this year is going to drop down because he's playing at that high level, playing on the Pro Tour. So if he can learn from those disappointments, handle that pressure, the expectation from outside, then yeah, I see him faring very well. And lastly, with Wessel, probably gone a little bit under the radar, just how well he's played. All the eyes, I think, have been on Luke and Gian, but Wessel, as I said, top of the averages. He's won 3 titles, and we can't brush it under the carpet. This is Wessel's comeback year, first year back playing competitive darts, playing on the development tour after the ban that he had for match fixing. And we know some people, there is a small percentage of people, they're not going to forget about it. They're going to make sure that Wessel doesn't forget about it. Whenever there's posts on social media, there are going to be a percentage of people that are going to comment on it and mention it and throw hate at him for it. But I think for me personally, he's been given the ban, he served that punishment. Now he's been given a second chance. So he's got a chance to try and achieve what he can with the talent that he's got for this game. And he's impressed me this year, how he's managed to kick on from that, the break away from the game, block out any of that outside noise, because I'm sure there's been plenty of it. But if he carries on with the same mindset, it's served him well on the development tour this year. Take that onto the Pro Tour, then again, like Luke, I can see him having some success over the next 2 years.
I think this class is definitely a decent number of questions about, because we haven't seen them before. But what we have, and by we haven't seen them before, I mean at the PDC professional level. But what we have seen on the development tour from both of them is nothing shy of fantastic. You mentioned that these are the top 2 in averages over the course of the year, and there's a big gap between them and, other than Gian van Veen, the number 4 player. Gian van Veen's more than a point behind second place Luke Littler. He's nearly 2 points behind Wessel Nijman, but he's then another 2.5 points ahead of Pascal Ruprecht, who has done a very good job on the Pro Tour so far, and Dylan Slevin as well. You know, you look down, but they are a full 3 to 4 points behind Luke Littler and Wessel Nijman. So these players have not just been the 2 best on the development tour. They've been the 2 best on the development tour by some distance. And this is over an extended period of time. This is 24 events. So an average matters more over 24 events than it does in one match. And in essence, they're a good 4 points per turn ahead. That's about a double per leg ahead. even the best of the rest of the players. And, you look at some of the other players that have played. Jake Rodriguez, Nathan Rafferty, Keen Barry, Dylan Slevin, Sebastian Bielecki. A lot of very good players. Cam Crabtree, Adam Gavlas. But they're all nowhere near as good as these two in the development tour. And I don't think we've seen anything like that. And Gian van Veen has been absolutely phenomenal. He hasn't been as good as those two. I think that raises the expectations, but the questions are still there. Like I mentioned, neither of these players are playing on the Pro Tour this year because they didn't go to Q school. I don't want to underestimate just how much of a step up it is to the PDC level. But even if they don't step up, even if Nijman brings his near 93 and Luke Littler brings his a little over 92 average, that's going to be competitive. That's going to put them in with a chance to qualify for the World Championships. You look at who's in those 92 ranges. Kim Hybrex, Jermaine Wadamena, Steve Lennon. Those are the players. You can add in Simon Whitlock that are averaging in the Players' Championship events what Wessel Nijman is averaging in the development tour. In Luke Littler's case, it's players like Mickey Mansell, Jamie Hughes, Dom Taylor. It's a pretty good standard. It's top 64, top half. And if you're top 64, you have a very good chance to qualify for the World Championships and maybe even some of the other events. Those first set of players I mentioned are in the race for the World Grand Prix. They're likely going to make it to Minehead. Some of them are going to play in the European Championships. So the expectations will be high, but it will be more difficult, and they will need to learn how to lose. You're going to be losing a lot more often with the 92, 93 average playing in the PDC Pro Tour than you will in the development tour. And even if you add a few points to that average, you're going to be losing a lot more than you are on the development tour. And how you take that, how that affects your confidence is going to be key. They're going to need to learn how to lose before they learn how to win. If they learn quickly, all the better, then they're going to hit the ground running. But it might take some time. So let's temper our expectations. We know both of these players have a lot of potential, and both of these players could very well do everything and then some next year. But let's expect that it'll take some time because they have a lot to learn before they fly.
Wise words from one of the other players that's dominating a darts circuit at the moment. Well, we'll be back in a moment to talk about the Pro Tour, which returns this weekend. But before then, let's hear from one of the players that we've spoke about on the show already this week. He is the player that's finished top of the Development Tour Order of Merit. He's in the final of the World Youth Championship in November. Here's our chat with Gian van Veen. I'm pleased to say we're joined once again by the man who has finished top of the Development Tour Order of Merit. He is one of this year's PDC World Youth Championship finalists, Gian van Veen. Thanks for joining us, Gian. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me again.
Thanks for coming on. And as far as weekends in Milton Keynes go, they don't get much better than the one that you've just had. Another title, you've topped the Order of Merit, you've won through to the World Youth Final, you've qualified for 2 Grand Slams and the World Championship. At one point, did you lose track on everything that you'd qualified for at the weekend?
No, not really. Beforehand, I was just hoping to get to this year's Grand Slam and the World Championship. I was hoping to maintain the number 1 spot on the ranking, and luckily I did. So that was already a success for me. But as you said, to get to the World Youth Championship final and qualify for the Grand Slam for next year is a bonus. But really happy with the past weekend.
Well, we'll come on to last weekend a bit later, but let's rewind first to when we last had you on the show. It was early May. You just won 2 Development Tour titles a few days earlier. You were enjoying your time so far on the Pro Tour, but one thing that you wanted to do was win a few more games on the Euro Tour and show what you could do on the stage. And fair to say that you did that only a few weeks later, getting to your first quarter-final on the Euro Tour.
As I said to you, I wanted to win some more games on the Euro Tour, and I did. I made 2 quarterfinals now, and as you said, the first one a couple of weeks later, where I ran into a mighty Luke Humphries, I should say, because he played very well. I think I played well, but was not much I could do in that game. But just happy with what I could show on the Euro Tour on that weekend and the next Euro Tour as well. So happy to can achieve my goals that I set with you on that conversation.
Yeah, what a run it was. You beat the likes of Danny Noppert, Josh Rock to make that final session, and in the quarterfinals, you said there, you went up against mighty Luke Humphries, who won it 6-4. He averaged almost 110. You averaged 106. So what was the feeling like coming off stage after that one and seeing how well you'd played? Because in a strange way, did it feel better in a defeat because you'd played at such a high level than maybe if you'd won a game and not played it at your best?
Yes and no. Of course, you like to play well, but if you lose, you got nothing that you play well. And the weeks before that, I think that maybe past 4 or 5 Pro Tours, I lost with 100 plus. So I felt like, oh, here we go again. And that's what everyone said to me in the practice room, like, oh, you do it again, you lose again with a high average. So that felt a bit rubbish, but yeah, it was good to show everyone what I'm capable of. But yeah, there was nothing I could do during that game. So yeah, I was quite relieved that especially with the weekend like that, and I could go down with my head held high.
Definitely could. And sticking with the Euro Tour, we've seen you a few times over the summer months playing on that tour, and on one occasion you played your good friend Christian Kist, and it's been great to see his comeback taking shape this year after the injury troubles that he's had. He's second on the Challenge Tour with 1 weekend to go. How good would it be to see Christian back on the tour with you next year?
Yeah, it would be very good. As you said, with the injuries he had a couple of years ago, he played very well on the tour back then, but the injuries kept him from maintaining his tour card. But yeah, he's having a good year. As you said, number 2 on the Challenge Tour. I think Barry Humpere is quite certain to get his tour card, and it will be a close call between Christian and the likes of Owen Bates and Cam Crabtree and some other guys who are around that spot. But yeah, it would be very good to see Christian next year back on the Pro Tour, because I think he's a phenomenal player, and he deserves to be on the Pro Tour.
Yeah, we'd like to see him come back as well. And back to yourself, though, we mentioned about playing well on stage, and we've got to bring up, it was still last month, early July, that incredible 114 average in the 6-0 win against Damon Hetto. You're 100% on the doubles as well, and some people might forget that this is your first year with a tour card, and you're throwing numbers like that on the stage.
Yeah, as you said, it was a phenomenal game. I felt really good that game, and yeah, I don't really know what happened. I just kept going with the flow on that game, and Damon played well, and he pushed me all the way to reach my, not really limit, but reach my top game, and I showed it, and it was needed. But Damon is a great player. He was grateful in defeat as well, and just happy that I could show that what I'm capable of on the stage. But yeah, it was a phenomenal game.
And as we move through the summer, you make another quarter-final on the Euro Tour. Off the board, we know that you're still busy the final year of your studies. You had to miss one of the Players' Championships. You still made the trip over for one of the events. Were you tempted to skip the whole weekend, or did you want to make the most of it and still play in one of the events?
No, I wasn't really tempted, because at the end of the year, I want to say to myself, I took every chance I got. I got the most out of the year that I could have got, and not miss an event while it was possible to play. And of course, I lost the first round. Maybe I got some other things on my mind during that because of my study. But yeah, I was happy that I did it, and I didn't have any regrets. But of course, I lost the first round, and just go there for one tournament was a bit. Yeah, it was just a shame that I lost. But no, I don't have any regrets.
Well, we'll come back to that theme of making the most of every chance, not missing events. And when we spoke last time, you said that the plan after your studies, it was to find some part-time work to go alongside the darts. You wanted something on the side to balance things out. Is that still the plan when you finish your studies?
Yeah. Well, I should have finished my studies already, but unfortunately I didn't get a sufficient grade for my thesis, so I had to redo it, which I delivered to school, which I handed in last Sunday, the evening of the World Youth Championship. But so hopefully that will be sufficient this time. I already got a part-time job, 24 hours a week, which I can cope very well right now with darts. They know what I'm doing, and they are really helpful in that. But yeah, that's the plan for the foreseeable future. And but of course, the long-term goal is to be a full-time professional.
Well, fingers crossed you get the result you want this time. Well, let's get on to
hopefully.
Well, let's get on to the weekend just gone then. It was the finale of the development tour. For a lot of players, it would have been around a month between events. Did you try and do anything in practice or at home to stay match sharp before you made the trip to Milton Keynes?
Well, not really. Since the last development tour in July, I went on holiday for a week to Greece. Then I went for 10 days to Bali with my girlfriend. So I spent some time in the sun and just relaxing away from darts. So I didn't touch a dart for like 3 weeks. And then 1 week before the last weekend of development tour, I came home and I started practicing like 2.5 hours a day. So I didn't really know where my game was until Friday morning. And of course, in the meantime, while I was away, I saw players like Luke, for example, my main competitor. He was winning the Modus Champions Week. He was winning loads of events. So I knew he was up for the weekend. And I was just hoping my game was still there. Practicing went well, but yeah, you never know. I didn't play a competitive match for like 5 weeks. But just happy that it turned out okay in the end.
Yeah, it certainly did, and as we touched on at the start, winning a title, your 6th of the year, you finished top of the Order of Merit, and I was thinking back, because you touched on it a little bit with playing in that One Players Championship event, but the commitment that you showed playing the Euro Tour on the Friday, then your manager helping you get over here for the development tours the next day, and you made one of the events with 10 minutes before the registration closed, and you won it. But you said to us that you wanted to play in as many events as you could, as you touched on, to not have any regrets that, if I'd have just played in this event, I might have done better. So at the end of it, to hold that plaque or trophy as the winner of the Order of Merit, you must have been incredibly proud that you've gone with that mindset and how it's paid off.
Yeah, for sure. If I wouldn't have gone to Wigan that weekend, I wouldn't have been able to get number 1 on the ranking and to qualify for the Grand Slam this year. So yeah, I'm just happy that I did it, and I had a game plan before that weekend. I knew if I lost to Clemens on the Euro Tour, I would have gone straight to England for the development tour. But even if I beat Gabriel Clemens, I would have played Michael van Gerwen on the Saturday, which is a whole other experience. So I knew either way it would be fine for me, but I'm happy that it turned out this way, that I won 2 out of the 3 events of that weekend, and that is what helped me kickstart my development tour year this year. And I had a great year on the development tour, and happy it turned out that way, and that me and my management who supported me in my decision that I went over to the UK that weekend.
Well, you've still got a bit more time on the development tour as well, and you're up to 7 titles now. Only 5 players, I think, have won more than that, and only 4 have reached double figures. You got 6 this year, so are you looking at next year to try and climb up that list even more?
Well, yeah, of course. Each year I want to win titles, and but yeah, the level on the development tour is really high. As everyone could see this year, it was a load of good players, and which will still be there next year. And but yeah, I want to win more titles next year, but hopefully I won't have to play on the development tour for another like 3 years, because I want to get into the top 32 of the main ranking, which won't allow me to play in a development tour. But for next year, that is not really a main goal. So yeah, I would love to be back on the development tour next year and hopefully pick up a couple of titles to get into the double figures. Well,
let's get on to one event that you've not won yet, but you've got a good chance of winning it now. And Sunday we had the World Youth Championship. It was played down to the final. One thing that I wanted to get your opinion on first of all was how the seedings work for this event, because it goes off the PDC Order of Merit, then it goes down to the Development Tour Order of Merit. So yourself, you went from the number 1 to the number 8 seed, Luke Littler from the number 2 to the number 15, and Wessel Nijman from number 3 to number 21. What did you think of that system?
I don't think it's a good system. I understand Josh Rock can't play on the development tour, so he should be number 1. I'm okay with that, but I think then I should be number 2, Luke should be number 3, Wessel should be number 4, and like other tour card holders who didn't play the development tour, that's on them. Then they shouldn't be automatically seeded, especially not like number 4, number 5 seeded for the Youth World Championship. So I think that system is not correct. I work my ass off all year to be the number 1, and then I get rewarded with a number 8 seeded, which is okay, but it still means you got Josh Rock before the final, which I think it shouldn't be how it works. But yeah, it is what it is, and I made the most out of the situation. And looking back at it, I'm happy with the way, or with the opponents I got, because at least I knew I had to be up for it, and I didn't get it easy to the final. So in the end, it worked out. But yeah, as I said, I don't think this system is what it should be.
Yeah, we're with you there. We think it should be different as well. And as you say, you certainly had it the hard way on Sunday as well. But despite the different seedings for you guys, the top 3 on the development tour Order Merit, all made the semi-finals, and Sebastian Białecki, the number 5, he got to the semi-finals as well. So I guess that the best players from the year were there at the finish. And touching on your run to the final, some tight games at the end, beating Josh Rock, the defending champion, 6-5 in the quarterfinals, and we can only follow it on Dart Connect, but you were 4-2 up, 5-4 down. You had that 1-5-4 finish, and then in the decider you win it in 21 darts. What was that game like to play in?
Nerve-wracking. I knew Josh wasn't playing at his best that whole day, and I knew this was the time to beat him. I knew I beat him already a couple of times this year, but he was beatable that day, and I knew it, which maybe put some more pressure on myself. But yeah, I missed a couple of darts, I think, when I got 4-2 up, and he started to play better, and I got 5-4 down, and then maybe he got nervous as well, because the last 2 legs of him weren't great, especially the last leg. Neither of us started well, because every time we had like 60 or 41, the other one must be thinking like, okay, now I need to step it in, and then you put more pressure on yourself, and it got even worse. But yeah, I was nervous, especially the last dart. The last finish on 60. I was very nervous. I was shaking a bit, but just happy to got over the line and to beat a good player in Josh Rock. But yeah, it was a real nervous game.
Well, let's get on to the semi-finals then, because that looked pretty exciting as well for us watching it against your fellow Dutchman Wessel Nijman. 5-4 down again, and you win it 6-5, this time surviving the match starts in that decider. How tense was that finish?
Yeah, it was, because I got only like 5 to 8 minutes after my game versus Josh, so I was just recovering from that game, and I got straight back into another good game, because Wessel, I thought maybe he was a bit nervous at the start, or at least that's what I hope, but he straight started off with a 10-dart leg. I was like, okay, he's up for it, so I need to be up for it as well. But I felt great during that game, and yeah, I got 5-4 down. I missed a couple of chances. I think I missed 5 darts to the double in one of the legs, and he took out 105. And then 1 or 2 legs later, I was on 47 after 9 darts, and didn't get a chance. So I knew if I kept playing that well, I knew I was going to get chances, but I needed to take them as well. But I got 5-4 down, and then he didn't play a particularly good leg at the 10th leg, and I nicked it back to 5-all. And then the last leg, he played a phenomenal leg. He even hit a 180 in the decider. But yeah, he missed 3 darts at the double. And that's what counts. I missed a 133 on the double as well. I hit treble 19, and I went for 2 doubles, and I hit the first one, but I missed the second. And then he missed 3, but luckily I took out the 19 finish. But yeah, it was really nervous. I was really nervous, and I felt for him because he played so well all day, all year. But he just missed out on the final in a harsh way. But yeah, happy that I got over the line. But it really was a great game.
Yeah, it certainly looked like a great game for the people there. And I don't know if you're aware as well, but going off of Darts Oracle, the semi-final with Wessel, that was your 200th game in PDC competitions already this year. And last year you played 197 games, and you still got 4 months of this year to go. That's a lot of darts.
Oh yeah, I didn't see that, but yeah, that really is a lot of darts, and it's only going to be more like this year with the Grand Slam, and hopefully, at least some Pro Tours, hopefully some Euro Tours, or maybe some other tournaments. And but yeah, happy how it's going this year. Last year was great, but this year is even better, and who knows what can happen in the next 4 months.
And it might have been with yourself or another Dutch player that we've spoken to on the show before, but it's around the PDC World Youth Championship. We've not had a Dutchman win it yet. We've had Michael van Gerwen, Barry van Peer. They've both made the finals. You're the 3rd player to get there now, and either way, there's going to be history on the line here. Either you're going to become that first Dutch winner, or we'll have Luke Littler, the youngest ever winner. Still 3 months away from that final, but how excited are you to play in it?
Yeah, very much so. Luke is a fantastic player. I played him twice this year. Both got to a last leg decider. I think I should have won the first one, but he should have won the second one. So I think it's all fair and square now, and just really looking forward to that game on the big stage and in front of a packed crowd, because it's in between the semis and the final of the Player Championships final, so it's going to be sold out. And it will be a fantastic atmosphere and a fantastic experience, and yeah, hopefully I'll be the first Dutchman to lift that trophy.
Yeah, we're excited for the final, and another interview that I think you did recently as well, you spoke about your battle with dartitis in recent years, which I wasn't aware of until the interview, but during that time you were still winning titles and playing on the Pro Tour, and you said you didn't have any tips on how you got through it, but looking back now to where you are now, the achievements that you've had over the last couple of years coming through dartitis at the same time, something that can ruin players, stop them from fulfilling their potential, you must be even more proud of what you've been able to do.
Yeah, for sure. I struggled with dartitis the first couple of months of last year and the back end of the year before. But yeah, I won my first PDC Challenge Tour with dartitis. I won my first development tour with dartitis. So yeah, it took a while sometimes, but I was still going in. I still played well. And when you're winning, you gain confidence, and confidence is the key to get rid of dartitis, is what I think. And I gained confidence, and all of a sudden it was gone, and hopefully it never comes back, but I'm sure it won't, because I'm getting results, and I know what I'm capable of, and I'm showing it from time to time. So I'm really happy. It's weird to say, but I'm happy that it happened to me, because I know what it feels like, and I know what I have to do to not get it anymore, if that makes sense. So it for sure made me a better player.
Two more before we let you go. Obviously, you've got the Pro Tour coming back this weekend in Germany. You're going to be there. We've also got the Euro Tour qualifiers on Monday as well. So it's an important few days coming up again for you, because particularly those qualifiers, you're right in the mix for another major event, the European Championship.
Yeah, for sure. They are very important. We got 3 more Euro Tour this year. I'm looking to make at least 2 of the qualifiers to be in a chance for the European Championships, and hopefully have another good run in the Euro Tours, which I know I can do, so why not? And hopefully to make it to Dortmund in, when is it? I think it's in October. So that would be amazing to achieve all of those things in your first year as a tour card holder. So that would be the goal.
And lastly, you've mentioned before about the support of your manager, your girlfriend as well, and especially that trip from the Euro Tour to the Development Tour on the same weekend. But do you have a message, I guess, for everyone who's supported you on this journey so far to get to where you are now, and just within one more win of becoming a World Youth Champion?
Yeah, the support I received this last weeks, months, and the last couple of years has been phenomenal. I really appreciate every message I get. I read them all, and it's been phenomenal, and hoping to, as you said, to get that Youth World Championship title. But it really means a lot.
Well, Gian, it's always a pleasure to catch up with you. We appreciate you taking out the time. Congratulations on finishing top of the Development Tour, getting through to the World Youth Final. Wish you all the best for that final and what else is to come this year as well.
Thank you very much, mate. Thank you for having me.
Attention all dart enthusiasts, this is ZR, your host from In the Mud Sports, and I have an exciting announcement for you. Are you ready to take your darting experience to the next level? Introducing In the Mud Sports, the premier online darts league for amateurs like yourself. We're not your typical darts league, it's an experience like no other. It's where you can showcase your skills, make new friends, and have an absolute blast. We have a vibrant community where camaraderie is key and darts meets pure enjoyment. Whether you're a singles player or love the excitement of team events, In the Mud Sports has got you covered. We are perfect for amateurs who want to have fun and improve their game along the way. It is your time to shine. Don't miss out on this incredible opportunity to elevate your darting experience and join 80 plus players from all around the world. Together we'll create unforgettable moments on and off the oche. You can catch all updates about where we are going live next through Twitter and Instagram at In the Mud Sports. See you guys there.
Thanks again to Gian for joining us now, switching over from the Development Tour to the Pro Tour, which returns after a summer break this weekend. Which players do you think are most in need of a good weekend in Hildesheim?
It's a long list, because we're now into the money end of the season. Even though we still have about half of the Players' Championship events to go, we only have a couple Euro Tour events left. And that means that each of these Players' Championship events are worth, relatively speaking, more than they would otherwise be. They are, in essence, 75% of the remaining events for the Pro Tour, as opposed to the normal 60% that they might have been. And that means that if you're going to make up ground, you're more likely going to do it by stringing together a good weekend or a good midweek, like the following week when there's Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, 3 events in these Players' Championship events. And that's how you're going to make up ground. Right now, if you look at the World Championship race, which it's not the most immediate, but it is the most important. That's, 7,500 pounds just for qualifying, assuming it's the same prize money as last year, 15,000 if you win a match, and it could very well go up from that. So, if you're trying to save your tour card, if you're trying to move up the rankings, you need to make it to the World Championships. And if you look at some of those players who are right there, just barely in, Jermaine Watamena, Jamie Hughes, Steve Lennon, people who I mentioned earlier as those players who are averaging well enough, but they haven't been getting results. They need to keep getting them because they're only 1,500, 2,000 pounds clear of Ricky Evans, Scott Williams, Boris Kersmar, Barry Vampire, and a slew of other players who are just outside. But there's also players who we're used to seeing in the World Championships who currently aren't there. Vincent van der Voort is nearly 3,000 pounds adrift, a significant amount. Roby John Rodriguez, okay, we hadn't seen him for a while, but he got back last year. He made it to a Euro Tour final and qualified for the World Match Play 12 months ago. Right now, he has a lot of work to do just to get to the World Championships. Mensur Suljovic, he's skipped a few events, and I think that's why he's outside. He had a very, very slow start to the year, could not qualify for a Euro Tour and barely could win a match, but he had a semifinal on the Pro Tour. He's had a couple other good runs, and all of a sudden he's back in the race. But he needs to string together some good weekends, and especially playing in Germany. I haven't seen if he entered, but I would assume he's more likely to have entered here. And if he's not going to be going to all the events in the UK, that makes it even more important that he has a big weekend in Germany, because he's likely having fewer opportunities as he tries to qualify for the World Championships, something that if we went back a year ago when he was hitting a 161 out to put Michael van Gerwen in a world of hurt at the World Championships, I don't think we would have thought we were saying. But, there's other players trying to get to the World Grand Prix. It's a very tight race. Ricardo Pietreko, after a great run, is right in the spot. Luke Woodhouse, after 3 Players' Championship events ago, making the final, is just outside. Both of them are going to try to solidify their chances to make a debut, but they have players like Ryan Joyce, Simon Whitlock, Kim Huybrechts, who are right there trying to stay in the field or get back into the field after a year or two out. A lot of players need to have big weekends for various different reasons. World Championships and World Grand Prix are the most overt reasons. And I guess I'll leave it at that, but I'll mention one more person who right now, surprisingly, is outside of the Players' Championship final spots. And that's the World Match Play champion, Nathan Aspinall. So it might be weird thinking he needs a big weekend, but if he wants to be in Minehead, then where he won his first major, granted a different event, then you know what? He needs a big weekend at some point, because right now he's not there.
Yeah, some great picks there. And I was going to mention that one about Nathan Aspinall as well. I'll come back to that in a moment. But I was chatting with a couple of players the other day, and for a lot of the tour card holders that we are going to see involved this weekend, it's been a long break between events. If you didn't qualify for the World Match Play the World Series, or if you're not old enough, if you're too old now to play on the development tour, then you would have missed that one that was around the World Match Play as well. So it's the best part of 7 weeks, really, since the last lot of game time PDC events for some of these players. But as you say, it's an important weekend for several reasons. The times are running out for players to qualify for some of these major events, and I think as well, we talk about the Players' Championships that are on Saturday and Sunday, those 2 Euro Tour qualifiers on Monday as well for events 11 and 12. There's only 13 Euro Tours, so that's going to be a potentially significant day, possibly more than Saturday and Sunday for some players. If you can qualify for those 2 Euro Tours, the money that goes towards the race to the European Championship, there is only 32 spots. It is a smaller field. That could make a big difference. But I think I was looking at the list earlier, players that are missing from this weekend. We've got, I think it was 13 tour card holders that are not making the trip to Germany. Some of the names we expected, I did expect some of the players that played in the World Series to skip this weekend and have a longer break since coming back home. You've got Danny Noppert, Michael Smith. You've got some other big names that are missing out, Johnny Clayton, Luke Humphreys, Michael van Gerwen. And one name I've got to say I am surprised to see that's not there is Devon Peterson, because we know it's been a tough time for him on the Oki this year. He's only won £3,000 in ranking prize money. And, his tour card is under real threat now going into the end of this year. And to be missing this weekend. There might be a valid reason, other commitments which players have got, but looking from the outside, he's got a lot to do to try and save that tour card, and missing 2 events that you're automatically in, it's not going to help him if he's going to want to avoid Q School next year. And I think virtually everyone that you'd expect, apart from that, to be making the trip to Germany is going to be there. And it is that time of the year now. We've had the UK Open, we've had the Premier League, we've had the World Match Play. A lot of the focus now hones in for the World Championships, and looking at that race, you mentioned some of the names, that well-established names at Ali Pali. You'd expect to see you do raise an eyebrow when someone says, oh, do you see that Mervyn King's not going to be at the World Championship this year? Vincent van der Voort, Mensah Suljovic, Roby John Rodriguez, players that you mentioned there. And okay, Adrian Lewis, he's not going to be there this weekend. He is on that sabbatical at the moment from the game, but again, he's someone that is missing out. And yeah, you mentioned Nathan Aspinall, the race to the Players' Championship finals. I mentioned some of the players that played the World Series are missing this weekend. Nathan Aspinall, he was in Australia and New Zealand. He did go to the World Series. You thought he might skip this weekend, but as you mentioned it, you look at the race to Minehead, he is currently 67th on that list. So I think it is a wise move for him to be going this weekend. There is still plenty of time. There is 14 Players' Championship events, 12 after this weekend, and he's only £250 off the top 64. But you'd like to think if he can get it done this weekend, have a deep run or two, then he can plot the rest of the year out a bit more carefully. He can skip some Players' Championships further down the line, and when the season does really start to stack up with those major events, he can rest before them instead of having to go to a Players' Championship to try and get into Minehead. And World Grand Prix race, you mentioned it there as well, that's going to be probably more the focus for some of the other players. That is the next major on the calendar. We've got, I think it's a month left before the cut-off for that. So yeah, it's going to be an exciting weekend for a lot of players to try and push themselves closer to getting in those events.
Yeah, and as you pointed out there, as of the time we're recording, the entries are out. They came out a few hours before we recorded, but I've been at work all morning, so I have not yet seen them until just now. So hopefully I didn't say anything that made a fool of myself, but I guess I didn't as much as I could have, since, as you mentioned, Nathan Aspinall is in the field. Now, continuing on with the Pro Tour, we're coming into the business end of the season. Of the new PDC Tour card holders for season 2023, who has impressed you so far?
Yeah, this is an interesting one, and you look back to Q School 2023, it feels like a long time ago now, but much of the talk before, during and after was about Corey Cadby, and unfortunately, since he's won back his tour card, we've not seen him play in another PDC competition. He's not been in any of the Players' Championship events. Spoiler alert for you, Burton, he's not playing in Germany this weekend, and it's a shame because I know we weren't the only ones after watching him get that tour card back at Q School to be excited. We were looking forward to seeing his second run on the tour. But let's talk about players that have won tour cards and they have entered events, and the standout, seems like we're repeating ourselves this week, but it's got to be Gian van Veen, because looking away from the development tour, looking to the Pro Tour, a couple of quarterfinals that he's had in European Tour events, and it's not just those runs, getting to that stage of the tournament, to the latter stage is the final session, but some of the averages that he's thrown as well. And we spoke about it earlier, some of the scalps that he's had as well, and even in the Players' Championship events, you look away from the Euro Tour, he's in the top 10 of the averages for overall for this year, and perhaps a little bit unfortunate not to have achieved more in these Players' Championships, because I think it's 6 times he's lost with a 100-plus average, a defeat with a 99 average as well. So you can't not be impressed with Gian van Veen so far this first year with his tour card, and not far behind him in the rankings as well, maybe quietly going about his business. It is Dylan Slevin, 86th on the averages though, which is a little bit further down, but you look, he only started playing on the development tour last year. He's not played on the Challenge Tour, and then he went and got his tour card at Q School. He was okay. He had some good runs on the development tour, but he was kind of a little bit of a surprise package coming through that and getting his tour card, a first real taste of a senior circuit, if you like, this year. And his first event, getting to a semi-final, got our attention straight away. And I think there is more to come from Dylan Slevin. We've seen him on the Euro Tour. I think he's played 5 Euro Tours so far this year. He's got a couple of wins, not had any deep runs yet, but I think he's in a strong position for Minehead Ali Pali, so we're going to see a little bit more of him at the back end of the year. And I think aside from Dylan Slevin, Gian van Veen, there's a few players we can mention. They've probably shown it in fits and spurts, really, what they can do, the potential that they've got. I don't think there's a long list of players that are consistently making these deep runs, but occasionally you're going to see him have a good run. You look at Jeffrey Desvan at the UK Open, knocking out Gerwyn Price, Neil Sonneveld, Richard Veenstra. They've had good runs on the Pro Tour as well. Christian Perez, the only time that we've seen him play in the Players' Championships this year, got to a quarter-final and picked up some big wins in that. And some other players as well. You know, they've shown what they can do. We've had Lee Evans, I think he beat Peter Wright on the Euro Tour. Stephen Burton beat Josh Rock recently in the Players' Championship. So we've seen it from a lot of players, what they're capable of doing. And I think just a quick head count, Players' Championship finals, World Championships, we've got 7 new tour card holders for this year in the current spots for both of them. So we'll see if we can get any more of them involved in that. But I think there is plenty more to come. And just lastly, I'll rewind back to Corey Cadby. Just imagine if he goes the whole year without not playing any tour events and then decides to rock up for the tour card holder qualifier, qualifies for the World Championship and wins a spot. What a story that would be. But we'll see if that happens. It might not. But hopefully before then, we'll see a lot more of the new tour card holders steal those headlines that maybe Corey Cadby would have written for the rest of the season.
One name you didn't say that I thought you would. You said most of the other ones I was planning to. But that's because, starting with Gian van Veen, there's one obvious standout person, but most of the other players that you can discuss, everyone is going to mention. You know, you mentioned Dylan Slevin. Even though right now he's only 86th in the averages, he's won over 20,000 pounds on the Pro Tour this year. That might not end up being enough to make the World Championships. It might. It's probably about 2,000 pounds short, maybe a little bit more than that. But there's still 14 Players' Championship events and 3 Euro Tours left. It will require a significant regression, at least in terms of results, for him to miss out. Same for Richard Veenstra. Veenstra, of course, is in the top 32 in averages so far this year, 29th in averages in the Players' Championship events. And that's why he's won 21,000 pounds, or at least part of why he's won 21,000 pounds on the Pro Tour this year. And, you know, an outside chance at the level he's playing, if he can get some luck, if he can get some big runs, if he can make some Euro Tours to get into the World Grand Prix. He's only 12,750 pounds out of that as things currently stand. Veenstra, former BDO #1, one of the best players in the BDO and then WDF before winning his tour card at the start of this year. So not really a surprise, but he's now hit the ground running. You mentioned Neil Sonneveld. He's a little further back, but 53rd in averages, not bad. But there's one player you didn't mention that at least I didn't hear you mention, that I'm a bit surprised you didn't, and that's Keegan Brown. And maybe that's because he's not a new player on tour, and maybe in the way the question's worded. But neither's, you mentioned Corey Cadby. He's been on tour before. He was a tour card holder. He's won events in the Pro Tour before. So he's a newly back on the tour, but he's not a new tour card holder. Neither is Keegan Brown. But as things currently stand, 53rd in Zonneveld's 53rd in average. Keegan Brown is 62nd in averages, but he's also won over 20,000 pounds. And if he hadn't lost his tour card at the end of last year, he'd currently be right there in the World Grand Prix because he won a Pro Tour event last year. He had some other good runs at the back end of the year. It wasn't enough to get him to the top 64, but there's no question he's a top 64 player, and he's just picked up where he's left off. And considering that he was good enough to win a title last year, even though it wasn't good enough to keep his tour card, that means he's probably good enough still to win one this year, especially since he's playing pretty well. Not great, but pretty well. So there's every chance that he'll still get to the World Grand Prix if he can get another one of those titles or a couple more deep runs. There's been a lot of impressive players, evidenced by the fact that we've gone through probably half of the new tour card holders just between the two of us talking. So I'll leave it at that because otherwise I could talk forever.
Well, that's a good pick, actually, with Keegan Brown. And one player that I forgot to mention as well, he's been playing some pretty good stuff, but also his attire as well. Adam Warner, I know he's a listener of the show as well. Wears the chinos. Shout out to him as well. We love all that. And we'll finish up the show. We've got a listener question that's come in from our long-time listener of the show, Warren Allsworth, who says, who wins more in their career, Luke Littler or Gian van Veen?
A really good question, as expected from Warren. I don't know. I mean, if where they are right now is where they're always going to be, I'm going to say Gian van Veen, but we don't know because I think both of them are going to improve from here. There's more questions regarding Luke Littler, just because he's younger and he doesn't have the stage experience that Gian van Veen does. Not that Gian has that much, but Luke has, at least in the PDC, absolutely none. And that's going to lead to us not being sure what he's truly capable of, and how he takes to the PDC level competition. We already know that Gian can take to it and raises his game, and probably will raise it even more as he learns and gets better. I think both of them have an absolute world of talent and a world of potential. Gian's just been an absolute phenomenon to watch so far this year. Luke Littler, we haven't gotten to watch him. We've only gotten to see his results, but we will get to watch him pretty soon in the World Youth Final, and I think we'll see him a lot next year. I will go with Gian, not because I necessarily think that, but because it's the safer bet. I already know he can take to the PDC level and be a superstar. I just have every reason to believe Luke can, but being that I know one and I only believe the other, I've got to say, I got to go with what is the more likely, and that is the one that I already know is true, and that's Gian van Veen.
Yeah, this question kind of feels like the Premier League picks, where one of us will pick one of them and then the other will go with the other, just to make sure that one of us gets it right. But I've got to say, I did have down here Luke Littler as my answer to this one, and I was a little bit cheeky with the way that I've gone about this one, because I think it is a tough question. We've spoke a lot about Gian and Luke on the show. You've heard from both of them, and they are two young men with very bright futures and presence in the game. And Gian, was he 21, 22, around that age? So he's not going to have many years left on the development tour, whilst Luke, he's got plenty more time on there, and unless he quickly makes that top 32 and repeats what Josh Rock's done in his first year on the tour. So as I say, I'm going to be a little bit cheeky. I'm going to say that Luke is going to win more because he's going to have more time playing on the development tour, and he is going to be able to rack up more titles on there. He's won 5 in his first year this year, and if he has 2 more years like that, which you could see him doing, then he'll break Ted Eviott's record of 14 development tour titles. And not to say that Gian could do that himself. He won 6 this year. He's on to 7. If he has a repeat of that, he's on 13, and he's 1 away. So I don't think it's a foregone conclusion, though, because there's a lot of players out there that are going to be looking to stop Gian and Luke next year. And there's players out there that we've not heard of yet that are going to come onto the development tour. They're going to kick into gear. They're going to find that extra percentage in their game, and they are going to become leading contenders on the development tour. So it's an exciting tour to follow, definitely. And as I say, we're going to see Gian for a little bit longer, Luke a little bit longer than that. You mentioned about the experience in terms of the senior events, and yeah, Gian definitely got the edge on that one. He's made a final without a tour card last year, and now he has got that tour card. He's kicking on again. And Luke, we've not seen how he'd fare on the Pro Tour side of things. We have seen him have a little bit of stage experience so far and do pretty well. But yeah, the Pro Tour is a big step up. But for me, I think they've both got exciting futures. You went with Gian van Veen. I'll go the other way, so one of us is right. I'm going to go with Luke Littler to win more than Gian van Veen.
Well, since you made the comparison to our Premier League picks, it's going to
be a draw.
It's going to be a draw. They're going to win the same amount, or Wessel Nijman's going to win more than both of them, so that will be wrong. But anything else for this week?
Well, we'll say a few thank yous, as always, to our guests for joining us, to Gian and Luke. That'll be the last time I mention their names on the show this week, but congratulations to both of them on making the World Youth Final and for what they've achieved so far this year. A big thank you as well to our sponsor, Dartwolf, who after this episode is going to be stepping aside as a sponsor and a supporter of the show. And we'd just like to say thank you from all the team to Dartwolf for all of the support that they've given us since coming on board. We do really appreciate it. Thanks for everything that they've done for us, and we wish them all the best for the future. We do have some exciting news to share with you all very soon on a new partnership for this show with a new company, so do keep an eye on our social media. Next week there's going to be an announcement on that. We'll talk more about it on the show next week as well. We can confirm Josh Rock. He's going to be joining us as well on the show next week. I had the pleasure of sitting down with Josh on Friday last week, just before he made the trip to Milton Keynes to play in the World Youth Championship, and it's the first time that we've had Josh on one-on-one since just after Q School. So as he said, there was a lot of ground to cover with him. It was a good chat, so you can look forward to that next week. And lastly, most importantly of all, thank you to our listeners. Thank you for continuing to download and listen to the show. Lots of exciting things coming with us, so do stick with the show. If you're watching the darts, or like Burton and I, you're trying to play the game to varying levels of success, then make sure you do one thing, and that is enjoy the darts.
And if you're not trying to do that, then just hang tight, because there's plenty of darts to enjoy other people playing as well. But yeah, just echoing everything Alex said, I'm excited about our new partnership. You'll hear more about that next week. I guess we'll just have to hang tight until then. Plenty to discuss next week as the Pro Tour gets back into high gear, a full month of Pro Tour, and then pretty much television events galore for the few months after that as we get closer to the 2024 PDC World Championships. So hang tight while you can, because, well, you're not going to have time to hang tight soon enough.